I was wearing black the day my world ended. We were at his uncle's funeral, surrounded by mourners and muffled sobs. My husband stood stiff beside me, quiet, unreadable. Then a little girl, maybe 5 years old, ran down the aisle in a yellow dress and threw herself into his arms. "Daddy!" she screamed. The room froze. My breath stopped. His mother turned away. His brother winced. Only I seemed surprised. Because I was his wife, and I had never seen that child in my life. My hand trembled. "Who is she?" I whispered. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "It's not what you think." That was a lie. It was exactly what I thought. He had a child, a whole daughter, born in the middle of our marriage, and everyone had known, except me. That was the moment I died, and the moment I was reborn. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. I stood there, in my black dress, holding the ashes of a life I thought was real. My fingers were cold. My heart was colder. He tried to explain. It was a mistake. She wasn't supposed to get pregnant. Like that made it better. Like erasing intention could erase a life. The child clung to him, eyes wide with joy. I wanted to hate her, but she was innocent. He wasn't. The mistress? She stood in the back of the church, arms folded, smug in her silence. I remember every detail, the chipped pink polish on her nails, the smirk she gave me, the way my husband's hand lingered on the girl's back. They didn't need to lie anymore. The truth was living, breathing, and smiling in front of me. I turned and walked out. Not because I was weak, but because I had to leave before I burned it all down. That night, I stared at the ceiling while he cried beside me. "Please, don't leave me," he begged. "She means nothing. It's you I love." I didn't respond. My mind was elsewhere, not just on the betrayal, but on the timeline. When had it started? What signs did I miss? How many people knew? My sister? My in-laws? The neighbors? And what did they all think of me? The fool who stayed loyal while he built a second life 2 blocks away. I felt like a ghost. Like I'd been erased from my own story. He kissed my hand. I felt nothing. And then something inside me snapped. I felt dizzy. My vision swam. And as I fell back against the pillow, I whispered, "I wish I never met you." And the world went dark. When I opened my eyes, I thought I was dreaming. The old curtains, my old phone, the calendar read 5 years earlier. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were younger. I was back. Back before the betrayal. Before the child. Before the lie cemented itself into my spine. At first, I thought I was hallucinating. But the messages on my phone told the truth. The dates, the photos, the conversations I once cherished. They were all still here. He hadn't cheated yet. The child hadn't been conceived yet. And that meant I had a choice. A terrifying, wholly dangerous choice. This time, I wouldn't love blindly. I wouldn't ask for loyalty. I would prepare for the fall and rise before they ever saw it coming. I watched him closely this time. The late-night texts, the unexplained absences. I noticed the lies before they fully formed. But I didn't confront him. I didn't accuse him. I let him think I was the same woman. Because that was my greatest weapon. His belief that I was still naive. I played my part perfectly. But privately, I changed everything. I took my name off joint accounts. I consulted lawyers. I began documenting. I made financial moves he didn't know about. I reached out to professionals I'd never had the courage to speak to before. And quietly, I started building something of my own. Not just an escape route, a life, one that would never depend on him again. I also began researching her, the woman who would become his secret. I found her early this time. She worked at a local dental clinic. Pretty, naive, thought she was clever. I didn't hate her. Not yet. I pitied her, because she thought he was choosing her, but he was only ever choosing himself. She'd learned that, the hard way. I didn't interfere. Not yet. I let the affair bloom in silence, because what they didn't know was that this time I had already decided the ending, and it wasn't going to be the same. While they played with fire, I built insurance, emotional, legal, financial. I started working with children's organizations, quietly, intentionally. I earned certifications, took courses in child development. I volunteered at shelters for single mothers. No one knew what I was doing, not even my friends. They thought I was distracting myself. But I wasn't. I was preparing. For a war I wouldn't have to fight with fists or fury. Just truth. And patience. Because eventually she would have that child. And when she did, I would be ready, in ways none of them could imagine. One night, he came home late again. Lipstick on his collar. Cheap perfume in his clothes. I smiled, set his dinner down like a perfect wife. And when he asked how my day was, I said, just peaceful. You? He blinked, confused. This wasn't how I used to react. I didn't explain. I didn't need to, because every second I smiled, every night I kissed him goodnight, I was setting the stage, letting him think I was asleep, while laying the trap they'd never see coming. He thought he was clever, texting her under a fake name. Daniela, as if I wouldn't notice the late-night smile he saved just for his screen. I never mentioned it. Instead, I made him think I was preoccupied with work, distracted, emotionally distant, just like he once told everyone to justify cheating. I played the disconnected wife so well he probably thought I was drifting away. But the truth, I was wide awake. I logged every suspicious expense, every hotel charge, every urgent meeting. I built a timeline, then quietly passed it to my attorney with the words, "We're not acting yet, just watching." He nodded. "You're smarter than most," he said. No, I was just reborn. I'd learned what happens to women who love harder than they protect themselves. This time, I'd be my own bodyguard. The pregnancy happened faster than before. I saw the signs. Her Instagram posts grew quieter. She stopped drinking in public. He started coming home nervous, overcompensating. Flowers, dinners, empty apologies for things I hadn't even accused him of. And I accepted it all with grace. I let him believe he was pulling it off, because his downfall was going to be his own hands. One night, I watched him from the hallway as he whispered on the phone. "I can't talk long. She's in the next room." I wasn't. I was in the hall, recording. Not because I needed to destroy him, because I needed to free myself without doubt. And every second he chose to lie became another step toward my freedom. She posted a blurry sonogram. Miracle in progress. No father mentioned, but I knew. Her miracle was my storm warning. I watched it quietly, logged the photo, traced the clinic logo in the corner, matched it to an appointment on his calendar. It all fit perfectly. And that's when I made my move. I filed a separate LLC, transferred my inheritance, and pulled my name from all the joint investments. I told no one, not even my closest friend. Because this wasn't a breakup. It was a controlled detonation. And when it went off, I wanted to be the only one standing on the other side. Calm, clean, unburned. I confronted him gently. "Are you happy?" I asked over dinner. He blinked. What do you mean? Just, do you think you're building a future you're proud of? His hand trembled on the fork. He knew. But he didn't know how much I knew. I wasn't asking for answers. I was giving him a chance to show me who he'd pretend to be one last time. He laughed nervously. Of course I am. With you. I nodded. Good. I raised my glass and toasted. To transparency. He didn't drink. Weeks passed. I initiated a trip to recharge. He encouraged it. Take all the time you need, babe. So I did. But not to relax. I traveled to meet with women's advocacy boards, legal consultants, and 2 founders who'd built safe transitional programs for mothers escaping betrayal. I told them I wanted to fund a new initiative. Not a charity, a system. Something scalable. Something personal. I wasn't just walking away from a husband. I was walking toward legacy. Toward becoming a woman no one could erase again. Not with secrets, not with lies, not with children hidden in shadows. The day the baby was born, I sent flowers. No name on the card. Just 3 words. You'll both need grace. He panicked. She called him. Does she know? He lied. No, of course not. But his hands were already shaking. I watched him from across the room as he stared at the phone, confused, exposed, unraveling. I smiled, made him dinner, kissed his cheek, because I wanted him to relax, to think he'd gotten away with it. There's something beautiful about letting a liar feel safe right before the curtain drops. And oh, I was almost ready to let it fall. Her name was Camilla. I knew it from the hospital paperwork I intercepted through a legal loophole. I had no intention of hurting the baby, but I needed to see her, to witness the living proof of the betrayal they buried behind smiles and silk ties. When I finally did, something strange happened. I didn't feel hate. I felt still. Because she wasn't a weapon. She wasn't even a wound. She was innocent. A soft-eyed, curious soul with cheeks like mine and a curl in her hair that matched my husband's mother. He had taken every good part of himself and hidden it away. In a girl who had no idea what kind of man he really was. I watched them, through the glass. He held her awkwardly. She cried. He passed her to the nurse. That's when I knew. He didn't love her. He barely understood her. But I could. Back home, I began leaking the truth. Not recklessly, surgically. I forwarded emails to the right people, sent anonymous tips to bloggers who didn't need much to spin the facts. Let one discreet message reach his company HR, then backed it up with documentation of ethics violations tied to personal finances. He spiraled. Within weeks, whispers became questions. His business partners pulled back. His family stopped defending him. I wasn't the scorned wife. I was the woman who let him bury himself. And all I did was stand back and let gravity do its job. Then came the final move. A public letter. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't loud. It was truth. I published it on Her Still, the platform I had built in silence over the past year. A gentle, devastating statement. Sometimes the people who vow to protect you are the ones building altars to themselves behind your back. This isn't about revenge. It's about remembering who you are when the lies fall away. I didn't mention names, but they didn't need to be mentioned. Everyone knew, and by the end of the week, the damage was done. Not to his reputation. That didn't matter. The damage was to his illusion of control. She tried to contact me. The mistress. I didn't know, she wrote. I didn't want to ruin your life. I believed her, but it didn't matter. Intent doesn't clean blood from a blade. I didn't reply. But I watched. Her social posts grew more desperate. parenting alone, exhausted, overwhelmed. I knew that path. I had seen it in the shelters I volunteered in. She was unraveling, not because she deserved it, but because she was left, alone by a man who always left when love required work. And though I didn't owe her anything, I started to wonder if maybe the child didn't deserve to pay for the war that birthed her. And then it happened. She was hospitalized. Stress, infection, something serious. Temporary custody was discussed. He refused to take her in. "It's not the right time," he told social services. Just like that, Camilla was no one's responsibility. But I had already submitted my name as an emergency contact, quietly, legally, weeks ago. Just in case, I had said. That case arrived. And I walked into the hospital not as a wife, not as a woman scorned, but as the only adult who had prepared to love that child. She looked up at me with those wide eyes, confused. "Are you my mommy now?" she asked. I knelt down and said, "Only if you want me to be." Camilla didn't warm up to me immediately. She was quiet, watchful, like a child who had already learned people come and go. But I didn't push. I didn't buy her affection or smother her with guilt-soaked love. I just showed up. Every morning, her favorite cereal. Every night, a soft, bedtime story. When she cried in her sleep, I sat beside her without asking questions. When she asked why her real dad didn't come, I said, "Real parents are the ones who stay." That was enough. The first time she called me Mama, it wasn't dramatic. She just whispered it while handing me a crayon. I almost didn't react, because I didn't want to scare her. But inside, something broke open. Not in pain, in grace. She had no idea what it meant to me. But I knew. I had been sent back in time for this moment, and I was finally living it. The world didn't understand. Family judged me. "You're raising the child that ruined your marriage?" I smiled. "No, I'm raising the child that reminded me what love is supposed to look like." Friends were divided. Some supported me. Others warned me I was too forgiving. But I wasn't forgiving him. I was rewriting her story. I wasn't interested in revenge anymore. I had the only thing that mattered: purpose. Camilla became the mirror I didn't know I needed. She didn't reflect my pain. She reflected my strength. She reminded me what it meant to show up without expecting anything in return. And day by day, we became something neither of us had planned: a family. He didn't even fight for custody. He said it was too complicated and not the right time to parent. It made me sick, how easily he walked away, just like he'd walked away from me, from us. But I didn't let that poison me. I let it be proof. He never had the capacity to nurture anyone. Not me, not her, not even himself. And instead of mourning that truth, I used it as my shield. Every time Camilla looked at me and asked, "Why doesn't he want me?" I said, "Because some people only know how to love themselves, but that's not your fault." And she believed me. Because I didn't just say it, I proved it. We started a new tradition. Fridays were strong girl nights. No screens, no tears. Just painting, cooking, building things with our hands. She made a cardboard crown and said, "You're the queen, and I'm your brave knight." I almost laughed. "I think you're the queen," I said. "You survived dragons." She didn't know what I meant, but she beamed. We planted a garden, together. Each flower had a name: trust, peace, start again. She didn't understand those either, but I watered them every morning and told her, "These are the parts of us we're growing now." And slowly, what had started in betrayal became a life filled with rituals, laughter, and the kind of softness I thought had died in me. Eventually, I went public. I shared our story. Not the scandal, but the triumph. I wrote a piece titled, "I didn't just survive the lie, I raised the truth." It spread like wildfire. Women messaged me from every corner of the world. Some in tears, some inspired, all connected by one shared ache: betrayal by those who were supposed to protect them. And in Camilla's quiet strength, they found hope. I spoke at shelters, donated resources, built a small nonprofit that placed children of fractured families in homes that actually nurtured them, not just ones with shared blood. Because DNA doesn't make you a parent. Love does. Consistency does. Showing up, even when it's hard, does. He showed up again, eventually. They always do. When the dust settles, when the spotlight shifts, when they realize what they abandoned now glows without them. He came to our house unannounced. Camilla was playing in the garden. He looked older, smaller, like shame had aged him faster than truth ever could. "I heard you've been raising her," he said. His voice cracked, not with sorrow, with entitlement. As if he thought he could just walk back in. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. "She's thriving," I said flatly. "She doesn't ask for you anymore." His eyes flickered. I'd like to see her. Maybe explain." I didn't blink. She doesn't need explanations. She needs consistency. And that's something you never gave. He tried to smile. "I've changed." I nodded. "So have we. That's why you're not invited inside." He stood there, waiting for me to bend. I didn't. I didn't scream or remind him what he did. I didn't rehash the timeline. I didn't ask if he loved her. Because I already knew. His love had always been performative, a costume he wore when it served him. And now, it served nothing. Camilla saw him through the window. She tilted her head. "Who's that?" she asked. I walked back inside. "Just a man who used to know us." She shrugged and returned to her puzzle. That was it. No drama, no tears, just a door shut gently on a chapter that didn't deserve a loud ending. Weeks later, she asked again, "Was he my first dad?" I nodded. "Yes." "But he left?" "Yes." She thought for a while. "And you stayed?" "Every day." She smiled. "That's why I picked you." I blinked. "Picked me?" She nodded, so sure of herself. "I think before I was born, I looked around and picked who'd really be my mom. And it wasn't her. It was you." I cried that night. Not because I was sad, but because in her tiny way, she gave me the validation no adult ever could. I wasn't the woman who raised the child of a betrayal. I was the woman who had been chosen. Our home was quiet, steady. Not perfect, but real. She started calling herself Camilla Grace, her choice. "Because that's what you gave me," she said. I updated her records. No courts, no blood tests, just truth, documented through love. And when I saw her sleeping, at night, arms curled under her cheek, I realized I no longer feared the past, because it had brought me to this. A little girl who gave me back my faith in my own instincts. A version of myself who no longer questioned whether I was enough. A life I never imagined, but one I had built with every soft yes to myself. At a conference for parental advocacy, I shared our journey on stage. The crowd was silent as I ended with, "Sometimes motherhood isn't what you're given, it's what you step into when no one else will." I got a standing ovation, but I wasn't thinking of the crowd. I was thinking of Camilla waiting at home, coloring her world in safety. I had taken a child born of deception and raised her with nothing but truth. That was more than survival. That was restoration. I didn't attend his funeral. Years later, when the call came, he passed suddenly, complications from the heart. I didn't feel grief, just stillness, a strange silence, like the wind had shifted, and I'd already built my shelter long ago. Camilla asked, "Do I need to go?" I knelt beside her and said, "Only if you want to." She shook her head. "You're the one who stayed. I don't need to say goodbye to someone who left." Her voice didn't carry bitterness, only clarity. She had inherited that from me, not through blood, but through bond, and that was enough. People whispered. She raised his child. She took in the child that broke her marriage? No, I raised the child that rebuilt my life. I took in the girl who reminded me I was never fragile. I was patient. And patience gave me the time to become a woman who no longer needed revenge to feel whole. I didn't win because I hurt him. I won because I healed in front of the daughter he never deserved. And in her eyes, I saw the version of me I wish I'd had when I was young. Steady, soft, and unshakable. Camilla grew, confident, bright, gentle, but with fire behind her convictions. At 16, she asked, "Do you think I'm like her?" Meaning her biological mother. I took her hand and said, "You are like the woman who showed up when no one else did. That's who you are." She smiled. "Then I guess I'm like you." That moment didn't need music or applause. It was legacy, spoken plainly. Proof that the bloodline you're born from matters far less than the love line you choose to follow. She chose mine. I chose hers. And the woman I was in the beginning? She wouldn't have believed she was capable of this. Years later, when Camilla stood on her own stage, graduating top of her class, delivering a speech titled, "What Love Really Means," I sat in the crowd, crying quietly, not from sadness, but from gratitude, because she was more than a daughter. She was my reminder that even the deepest betrayals can lead to lives more beautiful than anything we planned. We don't get to rewrite the past, but we can choose who we become because of it. And in choosing her, I became someone I could finally be proud of. She invited me on stage at the end of her speech. "This is my mom," she told the crowd. "Not because she gave birth to me, but because she gave me everything else." I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I just held her hand, smiled at the room full of stunned faces, and let them watch what real love looks like. Quiet, earned, and unshakably true. Now, when I tell my story, I don't say he betrayed me. I say he led me to her. I don't say she ruined my marriage. I say she made me a mother. Because sometimes, what was meant to break you becomes the thing that rebuilds you better. Softer. Wiser. Stronger. So if you're watching this, wondering how you'll ever trust again after being lied to, here's what I'll tell you. You don't have to trust them. You just have to trust yourself. Because when you do, you'll stop chasing the people who broke you and start becoming the woman they never saw coming.